Welcome back from lunch. We're excited to get started again. If you are here in this main room, you are here to hear Paige's last presentation. We're sad to have this be her last. We'll have to have her back another day because this is just not enough. But thank you very much. And
Okay.
5-minute warning.
Okay, great. Thank you. So thank you guys. How many have already seen me twice so far? Okay. So I really on this one went through, this was one of them that I was making edits in this morning where I was like, really, do I need to say that again? I don't think so. I'm just going to take that slide out. So I did some tweaking to those slides so that hopefully you're not hearing the same thing that you've already heard twice. So I did want to say, I told you Kansas is flatter than a pancake in certain areas. And when they did the study on that, they took it proportionately with like the percentage of the rise and those kinds of things. But this is an actual picture from about 10 miles from where I live. And there is a farm called Grinter Farm. And every year they plant sunflowers because the Kansas state flower is the sunflower. And about Labor Day weekend, the sunflowers come out, and they're out for looking like this for about 5 or 6 days. And sunflowers actually follow the sun when the sun is fully out. So this is actually a sunset, and that somebody took this picture, put it on Facebook for the farm. But that is Kansas. So I wanted to show that kind of prettier one with the sunflowers. I was looking for it yesterday and couldn't find it. I'm sorry, what? I did not take the picture. I stole the picture off Facebook. So now I wish I had taken it. Oop, that's not the one I wanted. Okay, let's get going. All right, let's see. All right, so this is kind of step 2 after what we talked about this morning. So I titled this Unlocking Potential Dynamic Approaches to Executive Function Skills. So we're going to jump in and talk about some different things you can do, go a little bit deeper with some of the skills, and we're actually going to even talk about how to write IEP goals on executive function skills towards the end. So again, here's my contact information with links to all my different sites and everything. I did not put the password in there for training. It is Utah with the U being capital. There it is right there. So again, you guys have all this information. So the resources from this morning are on there. The resources from this afternoon are on there. These are our objectives for the day. Again, we're going to identify some strategies. We're going to be talking more about UDL and the component of UDL with executive function skills. But I want to see what you guys need. So if you could do this readiness tracker for me. And on the readiness tracker, I came up with this idea last week on Thursday. I think I was working with somebody and had been reading a book on executive functioning skills because that's what I like to do. And it talked about, we work with kids and telling them what are things you need to be ready in class, but we don't talk about what are things you do not need. And so this is a readiness tracker I created, and on there it's a Padlet. And you can go to the items on the bottom, and you can type in words, you can find pictures, those kinds of things. So see if you can do it and just throw 1 or 2 things on there. Hopefully it will work. And let me open that Padlet up. I had this happening earlier. It wasn't wanting to open things up. Okay. So on your phones, it might be harder. Ooh, good. So let's see what you need, what you don't need. So while you're filling that in, I'll come back to it in just a minute. Here's how you could do the same thing. So doing the same idea with students of let's talk about our lesson or our activity. Here are the items you need to be successful in that lesson or activity. And then let's talk about the things you don't need. I actually had this idea, like I said the other day, I think it was on Thursday, and called my daughter, who is a teacher, and her husband is a teacher. And I said, hey, can I FaceTime with you real quick? Because I just had this idea. And she gives me this little, okay, Mom. And so I FaceTime her, and she has this little smirk on her face. And I'm like, I know that smirk. You're like, Mom, what's your idea this time? And so she said, well, we're actually at one of their friends' houses. Well, their friend, one of them is also a teacher. So out of the 4 people there, 4 of them are educators. So I was like, okay, I need to ask you guys, would you use this? How could you use this? If you had something like this in your classroom, how could you use it? How would this work with support? So my son-in-law, who's a high school math teacher, said, well, I think if this was part of my daily routine and it was something just regularly up on my board that I say to the students, hey, for class today, these are the things you need. These are the things you don't need. Then I think it would be okay. But if I said, hey, we're going to start this and it wasn't a daily routine, and he said, and then if I had it, I could just have it up there all the time so the kids could just look up there and go, oh, what do I need right now versus what do I not need? So I don't need my technology. I need my paper. I need my book, those kinds of things. And I was like, great, that's what I was going for. And then one of the other people there, my daughter just kind of smirked at me because she is always my guinea pig for things. So then their friend, who is, I think he's a 3rd grade teacher, he said, well, one of the teachers in my school has something similar to that, but she does it with pictures. And I was like, that's brilliant. So that's where this came from, and the activity you all are doing is what she does is she has a need and not need box on her whiteboard, and she's, I think, a kindergarten or 1st grade teacher, and she has magnets with pictures on them and just pulls over what the kids need or don't need that day, and the kids know how to look up there for it. I was like, oh, that's great. Isn't that a great executive function skill? Focus, modeling, those kinds of things that all students can use, right? Because you get into a class and you're like, okay, what do I need? What do I not need? But if I know, I always look at the upper right-hand corner over at this board or something, and it's going to tell me, then that helps me make a decision. So let's see what you all need today. Okay. We have some people, okay, who's the glasses? Whose glasses? Whose glasses? Yeah, that's me. So my husband teases me. He's like, how many pairs of glasses do you have? And I said, well, there are the purse glasses. There are the car glasses. There's the bedside glasses. There's my work glasses. There's my work glasses for being on a Zoom. And then there's the bifocal sunglasses so that I can read and have my sunglasses on. So you can't just have one pair, right? And they all have to be enough different that I can look at them and go, that is my purse sunglass or my purse glasses. Okay, so we need to be successful. We need fidgets. Oh, sorry, I don't have any fidgets. Empathy. Yeah, it's kind of at that time where, we're getting tired, right? Flexible seating, hopefully that worked. Ask questions, movement, somebody needs their phone, writing tools. What will distract me, friends? Yeah, but you're sitting by them, aren't you? Earbuds, background noise, your phone is going to distract you. Caffeine, are you moving that? I'm hoping you're moving that over to need. So again, these are the things you need, not need. You could do this with students with something similar. You could have them create their own. But the idea of this is that you would be able to self-identify, again, if a student needs additional support with this, you are going to provide that additional support to be an external support, and eventually have them be able to internalize and go, okay, this is what I need or what I don't need. Again, universal design approach that everybody can benefit from, but some kids need this and need something like this to be successful. So if you have a student who needs these kinds of visual supports, it's written in the IEP, but it's built into the class, it is just going to be beneficial for everyone else. So I just kind of wanted us to get started with a what do you need and what do you not need in this setting to be successful today. So here we go. We're going to jump into talking about adding more structure to the classroom with executive functioning skills. How many of you are familiar with Visible Learning by John Hattie? A few of you are. Okay. So the project I'm on in Kansas, we do a lot with Visible Learning, and actually have had Kate Koenig, who is also from Australia with John, come and work with us the last couple of years on Visible Learning and UDL. So what Visible Learning is, John Hattie, who is a researcher, looked at all these different research studies and did meta-analysis on them and came up with a system to look at them. And you can actually find all this information on the Visible Learning METAX or METAX or however, METAX is how it is, .com, and find the most recent information based on the most recent research that they have out there. So he looks at, I don't even know how many, a lot, like 50 plus different areas that look at what is the impact on learning. So a little bit of background on Visible Learning. So 0.4 has been found to be the benchmark of a year's worth of progress in a year. So 0.4 is what we want, okay? Below 0.4 means that you have, or 0.4 to 0.2 means that there's like a little bit of progress. 0.2 to 0 means, you know, less progress, obviously. So 0.4 is where we want to hit. 0.6 shows a great impact or the largest impact. And so anything 0.6 and above is really, really significant. And so these are different executive functioning skills, and what they have found impacts learning. These are higher than some of the typical things we do in the classroom every single day. And so executive functioning in general is 0.62, and you see those different areas. Self-control, working on self-control, having supports in place for self-control is 0.66. And again, greatly impacts education. So if you want the research base behind this, that's where you will find it. When we look at executive functioning skills, I think we've talked about this in all the sessions. These are the things we need to do. We need to teach the skill. We need to have it in the environment. We need to have the expectations to be doing that. Again, external supports moving for people to be able to internalize them. All right, this is one of the things I threw in today that I had in another, I think this morning, and then I pulled it out, and then I was like, oh, I really want to share that, so I threw it in right now. So these are results on an actual student that I worked with a number of years ago that was, I believe, a fourth grader. And this student was really having some issues with emotional control in the classroom. And so the team came to me and said, hey, you know, can we get some help from you? We're not sure what we need to do. We think there might need to be some assistive technology, and IEPs coming up, and we need to do goals. And I said, well, let's do an executive function checklist after they told me about the student. So we did the executive function checklist. I had the mom fill one out, I had the gen ed teacher, and I had the special ed teacher fill one out. And the reason I did that was really just to get kind of a cross-reference of things. And again, these are assessments. These are not evaluations. No permission is needed. It is just information to be used to drive goals. So I used a checklist. And then I am a very, very visual person. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to make a chart about this. My former boss always would laugh at me because I would have a meeting with her and I would walk in and she goes, how many spreadsheets do you have for me today? You know, because I would have them. So I turned this into a graph and decided that I was going to take the 2 or 3 highest areas ranked by each person and put them in green, and the 2 or 3 lowest areas ranked by each person and put them in red. And then I decided I was going to get an average just because I wanted to know kind of across the board what was going on. So as you see, this student, the mom ranked her highest in planning and prioritizing, sustained attention, and time management, but then had some pretty low skills in organization and goal-directed persistence. But she was the only one that did that. So that lets me know, oh, okay, some things are looking different at home than they're looking at school. Now, again, it doesn't mean she does or doesn't have these deficits, but it is looking different. But then when we look at the SPED teacher and general ed teacher, we're seeing some consistencies. So SPED teacher and general ed teacher both had rated high as response inhibition. Sustained attention, task initiation was really pretty solid with both of them. Time management, the SPED teacher saw was really good. Areas that were weak, emotional control. That was what we were most concerned about, and it showed on this. So what we did is we looked at this. And I did the averages, and then again, I did in green the 3 areas that were highest, and in red the areas that were lower. So my rationale in choosing task initiation over planning and prioritizing to turn green based on the average, they're both 11. Why do you think I picked one over the other? What? Yeah, okay. So task initiation. I wish my thing here worked. So task initiation is 11, and then planning and prioritizing average is 11 for both of them. But I turned the task initiation green, saying that was one of her highest areas, and I chose not to do planning and prioritizing. Why do you think I chose that? Because it's the school scores, right? I mean, not that I'm not worried about home, but it's the school scores that are giving it that. Because it was mom was the only one on planning and prioritizing who really ranked her higher, so that threw that off. So I was like, they're tied. So tie is going to the school on this one. Same thing on flexibility and metacognition. I put metacognition as red as a weakness and not flexibility, even though they're both red, because flexibility was consistently an 8, where metacognition had some 8s and so there was variability in that. So that's the one I turned red. So what we did with this student is we actually focused on working on her working memory and emotional control. We didn't worry about metacognition because, again, she was, I think, 3rd or 4th grade. And metacognition is a later developing executive function skill. So we're like, these other ones are really more important. And 3 is a lot, so we decided to focus on 2. So we wrote our IEP goals around emotional control and around working memory, but we used things related to time management, sustained attention, and task initiation to help her. So we used her strengths by putting in place some visual schedules, some planning tools for her so that she could plan, she could look at the schedules, she could know what was going on during the day, she could have input on that, she could mark things off, do these things, even though task initiation and time management were strengths. We put in place supports for those that then let her feel good and comfortable and in a good emotional spot, that then helped her and supported her emotional control so that she would be in a place. This morning we talked about the brain being out of whack and being in the survival mode versus the thinking mode. So it put her in a place where she could use her thinking brain and be able to talk about emotions and why do you feel this way and these different kinds of things and what frustrates you. Well, when I get frustrated, okay, we have, these supports in place that really helped her. And so those were the things we did. So that's how you can use these checklists that I've, shared with you to help inform some of the things you're doing. Is that helpful to see that kind of laid out that way? Okay. And again, you can do it your own way, however you want. This is just what worked for me and the team I was working with. All right, here's another executive function checklist. This was a student, I think one of the years that I was, one of my last few years. And my director would come and peek his head into my office. He would go, "Hey, Paige." And I would look at him and I'd go, "Hey, what do you need?" Because I knew he needed something that was outside, technically outside. It was one of those otherwise, things. So there was a student at one of the schools who was not doing well. The student was at one of the high schools and had been diagnosed with dyslexia and ADHD, but academically was doing okay. B's and C's, making it by, those kinds of things. But when the student got home, lots of meltdown, lots of giving up, lots of frustration, lots of not wanting to go to school, lots of tears, lots of pushback, because this student held it together at school. And when the student got home, it was let go of everything. And so there were lots of concerns then from the parent, because this student didn't actually qualify for an IEP, but a 504 plan. So I was asked to come in and help give her support with a 504 plan, with helping the team set some things up. So this student was in high school, so very capable of filling out a checklist on their own. So she filled out the checklist, and this was her actual checklist. Response inhibition, working memory, 18, goal-directed persistence, 21. That's out of 25. That is really high. I mean, that is amazing. But then you see task initiation and organization. Organization is 4. So she was saying, I'm struggling with this. Again, this is an assessment. This is not these scores don't correlate with like, this is good, this is bad. I mean, obviously the lower they are, the lower they are. But the bigger thing here to me was the huge discrepancy that she was self-identifying. So I met with her and said, okay, well, let's talk about this. What does this look like? So she explained to me her frustrations in school, and that, she would be in a class and she would be done with it. And she didn't, sometimes she wouldn't even know she had homework. Okay. Or I don't know what to do with my homework, or I don't know what to take with me, or I don't know how to do my homework, or these things. So we talked about all these things, and we put this in place. So again, here are her strongest skills. So we know she has goal-directed persistence, response inhibition, working memory. So we wanted to use those to support these other areas. So we talked about folders. I said, how do you organize your work right now? And she told me she had folders, and they were color-coded, different colors for every class. So we're not going to get into, is red supposed to be ELA? Is green supposed to be in science, or whatever? People will debate that. It doesn't matter. She had her system. And so I said, okay. And so I said, is that working for you? And she's like, well, yeah, when I remember to put things in the folder. Okay, well, given that. And I said, what about at home? And this was coming right off of COVID. And she goes, well, when I do homework, sometimes I do it on my bed, sometimes I do it on the couch, sometimes I do it, wherever. And I said, well, what about finding a place at home you could just do your homework, have a spot. So that spot has the pins that you need, and the, Post-it notes, and the whatever you need. And she was like, oh yeah, I know we could do that. So she decided that they were going to set up a spot at home. And then she used the Post-it notes on her computer that were built in. I think they're called stickies or something like that. The same color as the folders that she had. And at the end of each class, what we talked about is, so say it was her English class. At the end of each class, she would go, do I have homework to do? And if she did, she would write down what the homework was. And then she would think, what do I need to do that homework? And right then, she would write down, I need my book, I need my computer, and that's all. And that's what she would do. She would go to her next class. Maybe her next class was math. And if math was blue, then at the end of math, she would go, do I have anything? And I said, if you don't have anything, what are you going to do? And she was like, oh, I could leave it blank. And I said, okay, let's talk about that. What's the problem with leaving it blank? Did I forget? Did I put it in there? Did I forget? Whatever. And I said, so if it's blank, what if you forgot? And she was like, ooh, yeah. I said, so what could you do? And she said, I could put no. Great. So if you put no, you don't need anything. So she did that for all of her classes, and then had a Post-it note at the end of the day where she would look across at all of her classes and make one final Post-it note of, these are the things I need to take home. So in her last class of the day, which I do think ended up being like her, like a study hall or her sped class or something like that. Because I think they let her go in and work with a special ed teacher for like some additional support, even though she just had a 504. So she would go through and go, okay, these are the books I need. This is the homework I have. Bam. Go to my locker and get it done. So that's what she decided she was going to do. We just kind of talked through this, and I kind of coached her. So we did that. For task initiation, she decided again that she needed an environment with the ability to focus. And so then she worked on this for a couple of weeks and came back and saw me, and she goes, guess what I did? And I said, what did you do? And she said, I put timers on my phone. And I said, well, explain that to me. And she said, I put timers on my phone for when I needed to start homework every night. And I wanted to do my homework before dinner. And so at 5 o'clock every night, I would have a timer go off and I would know I needed to start my homework. I didn't come up with this. This was her idea. So again, students control. And then she would block time off in chunks. So, I would do it here. And I said, well, what happens if you don't get done? Well, I'll start again at 7 o'clock. So she had another one. She blocked off times to do this. This is a student when we started working was ready to drop out of school, was thinking about how can I homeschool, do something. And so she ended up, her mom still to this day, it's been like 4+ years, sends the director emails letting him know how she's doing. She ended up graduating a semester early with straight A's that semester. She is now in some technical career working on airplanes someplace doing something. And it was all because we stopped and we took the time to look at executive functioning. We didn't do anything for reading. We didn't do anything for math. None of those things. It was all about executive function skills. So that's what this looks like in practice, is focusing on this, then increased the student's ability for reading stuff. We did also teach this student how to use the accessibility features of having books read to her and note-taking and those kinds of things that she already knew how to do, but she just wasn't really focused on. So again, these are the checklists that I recommend. They're free. You can download them. They're also linked on my website. Here's some additional things. So there's a school district in Spring Valley, Illinois that I worked with last year. And after I started working with them, I went and spent the day and observed in classrooms. And one teacher had this up in her room and she gave me permission to take a picture and use it. And so she started this after we had done the training on executive function skills. She put this up in her classroom and she said it reduced students' anxiety and emotional frustrations in her class because they could go to the calendar and always know what's going on. So they didn't have to wonder. She had kids from other rooms know that she had this who would pop in, or she had a kid who was maybe in her class second period and would pop in later in the day to double check and look at the calendar and stuff. So just a calendar, that's it. Nothing special about the calendar. She did color code some different things, put different things on there, put due dates on there. So again, nothing earth-shattering, but very, very important. Here's another one that a teacher did. I know you can't really see it, but it's login information. You have all these different things, and kids are like, do I use my full email here? Do I just use this login? Do I do that? And so she had this printed off and around the room. I think some kids even had them on their desks so they could look it up and see what login information they needed so they knew how to do that. Again, timers, very, very important. If there's nothing else that you put in place, putting timers in place is going to reduce so many anxieties and different things. Okay, so here's another story. Sorry, this afternoon's a little bit of a story time. So here's another story. So this is a story actually from my daughter, who's a teacher. So she had a student in her class at one point, and she's a math teacher. And this student, there were known like ADHD, some kind of things going on. I don't know if the student had an IEP or not, but there were some known learning things going on. And so she was doing a math activity and she had them printed on different papers. So she had the white with like the directions on it, and then the blue was what the kids were supposed to do. So she could direct them to, on the blue paper, do this. Okay, so that was her rationale for it. This student came up to her last name is Pulse, and he said, Mrs. Pulse, when I used the blue paper, I knew it better and my letters and words didn't move. Okay, yeah, right? We've all heard this about people with dyslexia, those kinds of things, and we all know that for some people that's true. And so he said to her, can I do all of my assignments on blue paper? And she was like, yes, absolutely. What did you say? Oh, no. Oh, I thought she said something about this. And she was like, absolutely. So this student found that when he could access blue paper for his math, he was able to focus better, do better, those kinds of things. So that takes us around to talking about designing for the margins. Do you guys know what designing for the margins is? Okay. So designing for the margins is designing with the most needs in mind and the least needs in mind. So if we're talking about a physical environment, if this area right here, instead of stairs, had a ramp on it, and then the stairs were built around the ramp. Okay, so instead of it being built, and granted they put this up for here, it would be having a ramp and then the stairs are built around it. There's a picture that sometimes people use where it's a bunch of kids, it's a cartoon, there's a student sitting in a wheelchair and there's a custodian or somebody shoveling the steps, and the student says, hey, can you clean the ramp? And there's a bunch of kids waiting, and the person says, I'll do that as soon as I clear the stairs. And the kid says, well, but if you cleared the ramp first, everybody could get up. Okay, so that's what designing for the margins is. If you provide blue paper to, and I know blue paper is expensive, but I'm just going to use this. If you provide blue paper or paper options to everybody because it helps 2 or 3 kids, it's going to benefit the other kids, right? You're going to design for those outliers. And by doing that, you're automatically going to hit the middle. Okay, you're automatically going to hit the middle. So we want to think about that again when we looking at our environmental supports for executive function. We talked about this morning. One of the things I would challenge you all to do, this is on my website, go print it off, take it into a classroom, take it into your classroom, talk to other teachers about it, and go in and say, let's look around the room and see what do we have? What could we add that would support emotional control? Oh, we have the zones of regulation up here. Great. What are some things for response inhibition? Well, we tell kids, we have wait signs, we have these other visual supports, we have a calendar, we have a timer. So what are those different things that you already have in the environment? And again, we did that this morning. All right, so we're going to kind of dive deeper into this area of the UDL framework. So the UDL framework, this is the last line that talks about executive functioning skills. So when we look at engagement, that looks like working on emotional capacity. So that's kind of small to read, but it says recognize expectations, beliefs, and motivations, develop awareness of self and others, promote individual and collective reflection, and cultivate empathy and restorative practices. So what does that look like in a classroom? Again, this is UDL, so the focus is you're designing for everybody. What does that look like in a classroom that you guys already see? Do they do any discussions about emotions in classroom with social emotional learning or anything like that? Yeah, those are the kinds of things that are happening. So having those supports in place, when we look at that representation, it's building knowledge, using prior knowledge for new learning, highlighting and exploring patterns, cultivating multiple ways, maximizing transfer and generalization. And when we look at action and expression, it's setting meaningful goals, anticipating and planning for challenges, organizing information and resources. So all these executive function skills we've been talking about, embedding those into the classroom, making sure they're available for all students is one of the 3 big pillars of universal design for learning. All right, we have a little over, or just under a half an hour left. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into 2, maybe 3, because I'm also going to talk about IEP goals, different areas that we haven't covered yet. So we're going to dive into organization. Before I do that, any questions? Okay. All right. So organization is the ability to create and sustain a system. I think organization is about things and planning is about time. I've never seen anybody else talk about that, but that's how I kind of categorize it, because people want to lump them together, which is fine. But sometimes people have good time management, but they're horrible at organizing things, right? So organizing to me is about the things. So what do? We want to put systems in place. My husband, I love my husband. I told you that. I still really like my husband. We've been together 37 years. It drives me crazy when I can't find something and his response is, everything has its place. Yeah. Well, that's why I have 12 pairs of glasses, right? So I get that everything has its place, but in a classroom, that is so, so, so important. Where do kids know to go look and get things? Where do they know to get the pass to go to the bathroom? Where do they know to get the homework assignment? Where do they know to get extra paper? So having those things, those organization, provide color coding, visual supports, icons, let student lead the plan. We all organize differently, so let the kids help come up with the system. If you come up with a system and it's not working well, ask the kids for help. Some of these, the one on the bottom is actually from my daughter's classroom. So they use Unifix cubes. And so she had me help her put them in boxes. Over there on the far side, on your left side, the last other two I took from the internet. So a teacher has those organized with pictures on them. So again, if I need a pencil, I know where to go. If I need crayons, I know where to go. This other one, it looks like they're shared technology devices. And so they have color coded the devices with the cords so you know exactly what to plug in. What does that do? It reduces anxiety, it reduces frustration, it reduces some of those other things because we have those visuals and organization in place. This one on the far side is from a teacher friend of mine in Kansas, where she has different cubby things for different students so they know exactly where their materials go. Again, you're like, yeah, Paige, we see these in classrooms all the time. Exactly. This isn't about doing different. It's about doing what you're doing purposefully and going, okay, I don't have anything that is going to help with organization. Let me put something in place. The one on the right is from my daughter, left, my right, your left, is from my daughter's classroom as a math teacher. She said one of the biggest things she would run into is calculators being lost. Their school set of calculators, she would run into calculators being lost. So she teaches 3 different math classes. The kids rotate, they're in homerooms, rotate through. And so the next year, she started doing this. So there's a calculator and a Sharpie in each shoe thing. And so every kid has a number. So after class 1 leaves, she can look and go, oh, number 16 didn't turn in their calculator. Who's number 16? Oh, that's Johnny. Hey, would somebody check with Johnny and find out where the calculator is? Number 5 doesn't have a Sharpie. Will somebody check with Susie and see where the Sharpie is? So when kids are like, I put mine away. No, you didn't. Where is it? And she said it has helped and reduced stress and reduce just the chaos around it so much. And it has calmed down the environment of the classroom. Because I asked her, if there's one thing that you do that is, again, putting these supports in place in your classroom that you think has had the biggest change, what is it? And she said it was the calculators, which I thought was really interesting. She said otherwise it was just chaos. This is the picture I was looking for this morning that I wanted to share with you. So one of the ladies, I'm working with a second school district in Illinois this year, and she did this for her son. So he has varsity away, JV away, practice, varsity home, JV home, and practice. And so it says exactly what he needs on it. So again, she started this and would say to him and hand it to him, okay, you have JV away today. This is what you need. Okay, you have this away, go get this, you have this. So again, she was providing that external. Then she started just saying, go get the card, and he would start doing it. And now he's able to pack it himself and do it. But again, he has the cards should he need them and want to double check them. Because again, I'm that way. I pack and do stuff all the time. I travel a lot. I know how to pack when I travel. I still make a list and I still double check it. Even when I've crossed everything off the list, I'll go through and go, okay, yep, I packed my clothes. I packed my clothes. Yep, packed my shoes, packed my pants today, this time. Okay, I packed this. Oh yeah, I do need my charger, those kinds of things. So I still do that, and we all do that just to make that double check. So again, that's a great example of a real life situation. All right. How can you set up a classroom space to better support organization? Give me some ideas. Zones, having specific areas for different things. Yeah, like in a younger kids' classroom, there might be an art section, a reading section, library, those kinds of things. What is one more thing? Yeah, in some of the classrooms, we need to reduce some of the clutter. In some of the classrooms, we need to not have them be so Pinterest perfect. Sometimes they're a little much. There's a little too much. Or one of the new trends I've been seeing is these like really muted tones. And I'm like, if somebody's got like color issues, this is not going to support them quite as well. But yeah, sometimes we need to reduce a lot of those things, take some stuff out to figure out what we need to add. All right, questions on organization. All right, so now we're going to jump into planning and prioritizing, which again, organization to me is the things and planning is the time element with it. And I'm not doing anything on time because it kind of loops into this. Okay, so planning and prioritizing is creating a roadmap to reach a goal and includes being able to make decisions. Have any of you seen Get Ready, Do Done by Sarah Ward? You have. Okay, a couple people have, a long time ago. Okay, this is going to rock your world. This is going to blow your socks off, really. I wish I had created this. I did not. This is by Sarah Ward. You can find a lot of different things on this. I did one time after I talked about this, had somebody come up to me and say, well, this is how the military plans. So is anybody former military by any chance? Okay, so this may be familiar to you. You plan with the end in mind. I call it Pinterest planning or wedding planning. Right? I had both my kids get married within a year and a half of each other. And both brides had a Pinterest board plan of what everything was going to be, right? They had the end in mind. So let's look at the red. That is done. What is it going to look like when you're done? What is the picture? What is the end result? We also do this when we look at recipes. What is the first thing when you pull up a recipe that is on the page? A picture of it done. And you go, oh yeah, I like that. Or I like that, but it has mushrooms. Well, I could take mushrooms off, right? You make a decision about it. So we have done first. So we're going to plan starting at done. Then we're going to go, what do we need to do in order to do this? So remember this morning, we talked about the volition, the raking leaves. That's what this is, but in a reverse order. So the done, do, what steps do we need to do? And then 3 is what do we need to get ready to do it? And then so we plan backwards, we work forwards. So what does that look like in action? I don't know if you have this activity in Utah. Do you guys have the bug activity? I don't think you have enough bugs to do the bug activity. Okay, yeah, one of my friends was like, yeah, we don't have chiggers here. We don't have oak mites. We really don't even have mosquitoes. And I was like, sign me up. Okay, well, I'm telling you, my friend said you guys really didn't. He knows Kansas mosquitoes, and so your Utah mosquitoes must be different. Are they different? Okay, I'm hearing yes, they're different. All right, so this is an activity that we have in science classes, in some science classes in Kansas. This is actually a picture of the box from my children. I'm gonna get a drink. Sorry about that. Okay, so what this activity is the kids had to collect bugs and they had to identify them for some science class. So what do you have to do? So this is the done. This is what I want you to turn in on a certain date. Here's what we need to do. We need to collect the insects. We need to identify them. You need to euthanize the insects. Type out the scientific name, location, and date found, pin it inside the box, put the identification information on it, and turn it in by October 31st. That's what you need to do. What do you need to plan in order to do that? Well, you need a jar for the bugs. You need a ride to maybe go someplace else to get the bugs. You need a bug net, pen, paper, all those kinds of things. So you plan it backwards, and then you do it forwards. One of the things I like to do is give dates and say, okay, you've got this big, long project. By this date, I want you to have this done. By this date, I want you to have this done. By this date, you're going to turn it in. If a teacher gave this assignment to the kids and just said, I need you to go find bugs and put this information, and that was kind of all they did, how's that going to go for some of our kids? Tanking, right? If you did that assignment and presented it this way, how's that going to go for them? Increased success? Yeah. How's it going to go for the average kid? Because again, we're designing for the margins here. How's that going to go for your non-ADHD kid kind of thing? Is that going to harm them? No, not at all. It's actually going to make them go, oh yeah, that was kind of what I was planning to do. Okay, I'm right. I'm good. So what I like about this is I think you can use this for a lot of different things. You could use this for a math worksheet. What does the done look like? Your worksheet is done, your name is turned on it, and it's turned in. It doesn't have to have the answers on it. It's just done, name, turned in, right? That's what it looks like. And then what do you have to do for that to happen? And then what do you need? Again, what do you have to get ready? Oh, I need my technology. I need my book. I need my paper, or I don't need my technology, and then move it forward. I think this would be a great activity for teachers to do in class with their entire class. Have the green, the red, the yellow up on their board and say, okay, this is what it's going to look like when it's done. What do we need to do this? And then get the kids' input. Because again, we're providing those external supports so those kids can start internalizing this. You start doing this in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. By middle of elementary school, junior high, high school, they are doing this in their own brain, right? They might even be seeing the colors. This is what you did. How many of you traveled to be here and are spending the night here? This is what you did to travel. This is what you did to get ready today. You knew what your end result was. I knew my end result was wearing this outfit. So I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to wear. What do I need to do? What do I need to take with me? And then I worked it forward. So this is what we do every day. So really quick, we've got about 14 minutes. I think we're good. Let's talk this through with an activity in the classroom. Give me an activity in a classroom. Bell ringers. What's a bell ringer? The busy work before while everyone's coming in. Okay, I hadn't heard bell ringers. Okay, so do you guys know what that kind of like the seat work, bell ringers, seat work. Okay, so bell ringers, what does that look like when it's done? What does that look like when it's done? They filled out the question. So again, doesn't have to be anything beautiful, just whatever it is. You know, here's the completed answer. What do you have to do for the bell ringer? Whatever's on the board, right? You're going to answer the question. So the do could just be, again, answer the question, right? What do you need to get ready in order to do that? Get a pencil, paper, put my notebook away, put my backpack away, sit at my seat, right? I'm not walking around the classroom. I'm not throwing things across the room at my students. So again, it can be something as easy and neat and like, well, of course that's what you do. But have you taught them that that's what you do? One of my biggest pet peeves is when people say, but they should know how to do that. Here is my honest response that I have said to people. They don't, so let's move past that. We can stay there all we want, and it's not going to do anybody any good. They don't, so let's move past that and figure out what we need to do to teach that skill to them. So this is from a life skills advocate. It is a great website about executive functioning skills, and I highly recommend it. And so I've seen these before for different things. So this is how do you decide? It's the Eisenhower matrix. And so here, the top left-hand corner, we've got things that are important and urgent. So that's what I do now. So if you're trying to prioritize and figure out what is the most important thing. The not urgent is things that are not urgent but are important. I'm going to schedule it. Oh, I need to make sure I get into the dentist. I need to fill out my expense report. I mean, it's important. I need to do it. I need to get paid, but I can put that off a few days. So I'm going to schedule it. Not important, but urgent. You delegate or you do it automatic, so an urgent, but thing that I might need to do, well, I guess that wouldn't say urgent. That's not a good example. I don't have a good example for that. But urgent and not important. But then not urgent, not important, delete it or postpone it. Take it off your list. How can you get rid of it? If it's not urgent and it's not important, maybe it doesn't need to be done. right? Or if it does, how do you move it into one of those other quadrants? So again, this is a great way if a kid is like, there's too much to do, I don't know where to start. Have them use something like this and talk about, well, what does urgent mean? What does important mean? What would happen if you didn't do it? What is urgent? What does time sensitive mean? And have them do something like that. Sustained attention is the capacity to hold on to things and pay attention to a given task in spite of being fatigued. That is what you all are doing right now. Thank you. 10 minutes. That is what you all are doing right now. So sustained attention and attention span, how are they different? So these are different in the sustained attention is being able to consider and work with multiple things at a time for a like back to back to back situation. And we can usually do this to 2 to 3 minutes per year of age. Attention span is how long you can hold to one thing at a time. And the average attention span is now 8, and a goldfish is 9. Yes. So humans actually now have an attention span shorter than a goldfish. So there's actually research and information out on this, and this is from Gloria Mark from UC Irvine. And here's some information when using a screen. In the early 2000s, we averaged about 2.5 minutes before we pulled off of a screen and switched to something else. Now, 2017, so that's been 8 years, it was at 47 seconds. I will be honest, I know it's way lower because I know mine's way lower. I can watch something, and if it doesn't really intrigue me after about 15 seconds, I'm like gone, right? So we're seeing that. And then there's different kinds of attention. There's focused attention, rote attentions, a state of boredom, and a state of frustration. And I really like looking at these, and I think I have a video on this, or at least I have a blog on it, on those different things. So I think that's really important to think about is focused attention is when you're engaged with effort. Right now, you guys are hopefully not frustrated, hopefully not in a whole state of boredom, but you might be a little bit because when I say not engaged, you're not doing things, right? You're not doing things, but hopefully you're a little challenged. This is thinking it. Row is when you're engaged without challenging, brushing your teeth, those kinds of things. And then what we really want is we want engaged with having to put some kind of effort in. How do we strengthen this? Well, we estimate how long something is going to take. Okay, this I think is going to take me 5 minutes, whatever. You talk about it, you write it down. You do some of those different things with it. You give a visual way to check elapsed time. You put other things away. I don't know if you know this, but multitasking is a fallacy. It is impossible to multitask. Your brain cannot multitask. What you do is you shift between different things one after the other really quickly. So it isn't that you're doing multiple things at one time. Your brain is shifting. So put things away. It has been found that even if your phone is in your environment, you will be distracted by it, even if you're not looking at it. So put your technology away and take regular short breaks. Okay, real quick, I think we have about 7-ish minutes. I have 8 minutes on mine. Writing IEP goals. So how do you do this? How do you put this in practice? Okay, that's fine, Paige, but I'm a speech path, I'm an OT, I'm a special ed teacher, I'm not a general ed teacher. I have a teacher who won't change in their environment. I can't change my school. Well, then let's focus on what we can work on, and that's IEP goals. So last week or a couple of weeks ago, I was working with somebody who's in our Kansas, like you at, and working with her on how to do some executive function things and write goals. So I said, I was thinking maybe a rubric would be a really good idea for this. And so what you want to do is you want to use a rubric. You want to create it and use it before the IEP so you can get a baseline so that you can put the rubric in practice and go into the IEP meeting and say, this is where the student is. Determine how you will measure the rubric is really going to depend on the student. So you might say, okay, well, let me get an average of all the things. So I want to see that average increase. Maybe I say I want every area to increase by 1. Maybe you see specific things you want to do. So how you're going to measure it is really going to be individual to the student. But the best part is you can use AI to do this. Have any of you used Magic School AI? Yeah. So I was trying to figure out, okay, I want to do this. And I'm like, I bet there's a rubric maker out there. Well, Magic School AI is free. There's a paid version. I have no idea what the paid version does that the free version doesn't, but there is a rubric maker. So it's called Rubric Generator. And what you do is you can give it the student's grade level, pick your point scale. I recommend 3 or 5 so that you can have that far right, far left, middle kind of thing. I like 5 because 1, 2, 3 is just a little bit too tight. I want that 2 or that 4. So I like 5. What I did, I'm going to show you one I did. All I did is I put in executive functioning. I tell you not to do that, but that's what I did for the, no, I didn't. I put blurting to write a goal to keep the student from blurting out loud. That was the goal, because that's one of the things I hear from people all the time. And then under assessment, okay, sorry, no. In the standard, I put just executive functioning, I think. And then I put the description, I put as the blurting. And this is what it gave me. Seriously, I put it in and hit a button, click, and it went, and this is what it gave me. It gave me 4, working on blurting, impulse control, consistently waits to be called on and raises hand quietly in every environment without interrupting, is excellent. Self-regulation demonstrates complete self-control using strategies to manage impulses without teacher reminders. And social awareness always respects others' speaking turns and demonstrates empathy towards classroom communication norms. Is that a pretty good rubric? Yeah. If I said to the parent, hey, we're having issues with, Johnny blurting out in class, and this is what we're going to do and focus on, would this be realistic? Would a gen ed teacher be able to give you a score on this? Yeah, pretty easily. What I really loved about it, there's a few things I really loved about it, but one is it went with what we talked about earlier when I talked about blurters, that they don't know when to do it, what topic to do, and all those things. Well, impulse control, when, self-regulation, using strategies, unable to control speaking impulses. So again, that when, and social awareness is the right to speak and what my topic is. So it really went on with this. So while you could use one of these to generate it for you, if you don't know about executive functioning skills, this isn't going to mean as much. But if you know about executive functioning skills, then you read this and you go, okay, well, I want to tweak this or tweak that. And you can do that. You can go into it and hit an edit button and tweak it. So that would be a recommendation. And if I was doing this, I would do it as ahead of time. I would do it ahead of time and get a baseline, talk with the student about it. This is what we're going to be focusing on, what we're going to be doing. And then I would do periodic check-ins. All right, I think I have 1 or 2 minutes left. So to pull things together just like we have in the other ones. Again, another Padlet. If you would go in and tell me what resonated with you from this. Was there something specific that was really helpful, not helpful, those kinds of things, and put that on it. Again, if you want me to respond to you directly, send me your email or put your email address on that, and I will respond to you maybe today when I'm sitting in the airport, because I'm going to be leaving here in shortly. But I will respond to you, reach out to you, and those kinds of things. Does everyone have that wanted it? And if you can't get it, it is padlet.com, Buckingham, Kansas /EF for executive function. All right, that is it. And so I want to tell you guys, thank you so much for having me here in Utah. Austin and I were talking outside, and he's like, so how's it been? It's like, it has been amazing. Okay, whoever ordered up this weather, thank you. The food was amazing. The people, everyone was so kind. It was just so beautiful. I said to my husband, I said, we're going back to Utah sometime. So thank you guys so much for having me, and have a great rest of your session. And hopefully, again, something from today resonated with you and it is useful to you as you go back and do the amazing, amazing hard work that you do with kids. And if I could give you all a prize, I would. I don't. So just thank you so much for everything you do.